Hello and welcome back to the channel. So today you join me on a really sunny day, and it's been this way kind of for the last month, I would say. Temperatures have kind of been around in and around 20 degrees Celsius, and we haven't had a lot of rain at all. So in this video I'm going to just show you a few watering tips and some of the fertilizers and that I use to kind of boost certain growth rates in certain plants at certain times. So what we will do is first of all we will have a look at the fertilizers that I use, and then I will show you what kind of plants I use them on. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe and click the like button. It helps me out massively. We really want to grow the channel even more throughout this year. Lots of more content is coming. So if you're interested in particular types of plants, I will do quite a few YouTube shorts which will feature just one particular type of plant and give you loads of information about that. So without further ado, let's have a look at the fertilizers which I use. So I use a wide range of fertilizers in the garden. So let's start with the one on the left hand side here. So this is a liquid seaweed. I generally use this particular type of fertilizer for any big leaf kind of tropical style plants. So things like the bananas and a lot of the evergreens will get used with this stuff. So it's very easy to use. You just dilute it down you have like a little measurer that you use to measure it out, mix it with water and basically pour it over the roots of the plants. So this particular one, we use approximately 10 ml per litre of water. So yeah, anything leafy like bananas, cannas, those kind of plants, recommended to use that one. Next we have a azalea chameleon rhododendron feed. So I give this to any plant which involves like a acidic type environment. So generally things like tree ferns quite like this stuff, and obviously the camellias and magnolias like this as well. So this comes in a granular form. You have a little measurer and just follow the instructions on the box, and that is diluted down into like in the watering can. Next up we have a sort of pelleted fertilizer which comes in small pellets basically, and this is what I will put on the lawn kind of probably once to twice a year. It's a slow release, 5 to 6 months is what it says on there. This is a granular fertilizer, and when you water the lawn or when you get rainfall, it basically dilutes gradually into the soil. So this is very good for the lawn, and it can be used pretty much for most other types of plants as well. So that is a very good general fertilizer on there. Now we have 3 types of fertilizer which I use for palms. So we have, starting at the top there, we have a little bottle of Palm Booster, which is basically a vitamin type mix. It's in a liquid form and it comes with a little measurer on the top there, and it's 1 ml of this per litre of water. And I dilute this, and basically this is given to palms to mainly boost their root growth on there, to get them established, or if they're feeling a little bit sick after winter, after cold weather and stuff. When you're in the growing season, I use that particular type of liquid fertilizer there. Then we have a slow release palm fertilizer, which is a grey kind of granules on there, and this is a slow release mix which you apply every 8 to 12 weeks, 50 grams per square meter on there, and you have a little measure on there. It's a dry mix. Put a spoonful basically around each palm every 8 to 12 weeks there, and that will slowly wash into the soil and boost the plant. The other one I use here is a soluble palm mix, which is 1 gram per litre of it basically dilutes in the water. So you're looking at a 15-gram scoop, which is goes here, and this goes into a watering can, and it's a soluble mix, and then you basically water it on the palm to give it a boost on there. So that's the palms covered there. Then we have this here, which is a manure. It's called 6X, and it's basically like a garden manure, but it is packed down so that it takes up less space basically, and it's a very rich mix, and you'd use this again on things like bananas and anything kind of leafy, big leaves plants. So Tetrapanax will probably benefit from this as well, and yeah, this will feed it over the course of the whole kind of year on there. I also use this on roses because manure is really good for them as well. So then we move on to the 3 tubs that I've got here. So what have we got? So we've got a triple super phosphate mix, which comes in, again, little grey pellets, and this dissolves gradually over a longer period of time. And I use this to basically make particular types of plants flower. So things like wisteria. I've got wisteria on the back of the house here, and it occasionally doesn't flower. And the best way to try and use this is early on in the season, put a load of this around the roots. Hopefully it will all wash in nicely in the kind of early spring, and it will bud up and produce flowers on there. So that's only really used for that purpose. Then we have soluble iron sulfate, which is in a granular form, very, very fine. And I use this little cup here on there. This is soluble, so you mix it into basically, I mix it into a sprayer, and I put basically about 25 grams of this per litre of water, and put it into a sprayer and spray it on the lawn to green the lawn up. It gives it's kind of almost instant. So after a couple of days, it greens the lawn up amazingly. It also helps for frost protection on the lawn to try and give it a bit of a boost. And in the summer, likewise, it will give it a boost in droughty type conditions. So as long as you spray it onto the foliage, it absorbs into the plant and greens it up. And after a few days, I then water it in anyway, because my irrigation will come on to do that. So recommended for greening up a lawn. And the final one that I use as a general fertilizer is blood, fish and bone, which I use on newly establishing plants. And it's just a powdery kind of dust that you put around there, and it gives particularly good for kind of establishing shrubs, but it's an all-round fertilizer, so you can use that at the beginning of the season, and that really helps to get plants boosted. So this is a good example of a plant. This is a banana plant, which I would use things like blood, fish and bone on to help give it a boost, and things like liquid seaweed can be used for this as well. So there were 2 fertilizers that I will use on this. So essentially, blood, fish and bone I would use early on in the season, just around, literally dusted around the roots of the plant there, and that will that's a very slow release fertilizer. And then during the growing season, so now really kind of mid-May onwards, I will give it a boost with liquid seaweed, probably every couple of weeks, just to give it a boost on there. And I would use the same on things like cannas and any other plants which I feel needs a little bit of a boost. So for example, I'm down here, I've got a new Fatsia camouflage here, which I will use those two fertilizers on just to get it established. Then once it's established, you probably don't need to fertilize that one very often on there. So just to show you up close, this is the bloodfish and bone. So probably a scoop around this sort of size I'll just put around that banana plant there. And the other one is this liquid seaweed. I'll try and show you inside on there. It's like a weird kind of grey brown mixture there. So that's what I'd use on the big leaf plants. Here is the two palm fertilizers. So this side here we've got a soluble mix, which that is apparently 15 grams. So you put that, I think it's 1 gram per litre, so 15 litre watering can. You just dump that in there, swish it around a little bit just to dilute it, and then put that round the base of the palm. This here is the granular mix, which is, I got both of these from Hardy Palms, so totally recommend them. You can get different combos of the two together for a reduced price, and even the palm booster as well. All three of those you can get from Hardy Palms. I think Amazon do similar kind of ones as well. So yeah, they're very good for palms because I don't think they contain a lot of salt. So if the palm is in a pot, you don't get the salt build up. So simply with those, you just either water the watering can in there, or you just literally sprinkle the granules around the base of the palm there. And you can use that on all different types of palms. Over here we've got a Brahmata, which is a very, very slow growing palm, but you can use it on that as well. If you want to boost things like the Trachycarpus fortunei, or we've got a Trithanax here, different type of palm, super spiky there. So you can use that as well. Okay, so over in this part of the garden, this is what I would use the rhododendron sort of, it's an ericaceous, basically soluble feed there. This one I keep forgetting to feed, and this is a good example. This is a camellia that's looking a little bit wrecked. So you can see its leaves should be dark green like that bottom one, but they're actually quite yellow. So that is a good example of what I would use this feed on. Also the magnolia. This is the magnolia at the front of the house. It's got quite a good trunk on it now. And this I will feed every so often because we're on chalky soil here. So I do find that actually it does go yellow a little bit where it is lacking the nutrients due to the chalk. So by basically mixing up this soluble mix, I would then pour that onto the base there of the plant. And yeah, you have to put quite a bit on actually because this is quite a big tree. So that's what I would do with that mix. And with this general kind of slow release fertilizer, this is what I generally would use on the lawn, but you can use it on other plants as well. So just to show you what that is actually like, so that is the mixture there. So it's like a pelleted slow release fertilizer, which you could use it similar to the liquid seaweed or the bloodfish and bone, but it's just another thing to use really. I had a load laying around. So watering wise, in my garden I use different methods. So I do have a drip irrigation around the garden, and I do have some pop-ups in the lawn. So the pop-ups are really good at just basically keeping the grass nice and green, but they also kind of splash onto the flower bed as well. And if I just show you over here, we have drip irrigation, which is this brown piping here, which runs along the flower beds, and this basically drips in the middle of the night and just boosts the moisture levels in the soil. Now, Regarding pots, it is very, very difficult to work out how much water a plant's really going to need as the temperatures change, because the temperatures change every single day pretty much. It depends on the size of the pot and the type of plant that's in there. So what I do is I try and put plants in as bigger pots as possible. So generally kind of 70 litre plus, I would say. And I provide a bit of mulch along the top, which also helps lock in the moisture a little bit. Now, the plant usually tells you when it's being underwatered, unless you're obviously overwatering too much. But essentially what happens is the edges of the leaves tend to go a little bit brown like it has here, and then the leaves start to go a bit yellow as it can't get the nutrients into the plant. So generally with pots, the best thing to do is to really soak the pot, I would say once or twice a week in reasonably hot weather, so anything from 20 degrees or more. Certain types of plants, if they're an arid plant, so if they're like a yucca, or I've got some Pseudopanax, I think it is, down here. So these weird sort of creepy little things, they like well-drained soil, so they're from a more dry situation. It's also worth noting that with pop-ups, you have to be a bit careful, because I've got a pop-up over here, and it used to fire the water over in this direction towards this Baharamata, which doesn't like a huge amount of moisture. They're a bit more kind of desert style plants. So although they like a water deeply into the soil, but not frequently. So because obviously the lawn is going to need to be watered more than this particular palm, I've basically re-angled the sprinkler so it doesn't fire in the direction of this palm on there. So yeah, the containers obviously makes a big difference. So for instance, if they're plastic containers like these ones here, they don't obviously let the moisture through. Terracotta will let moisture through and dry out a lot quicker on there. So that is something to bear in mind on there as well. It's always good to have some kind of mulch on the top, whether that be wood chip or stones, because that helps keep moisture in. And also bear in mind, of course, that if they're black, like this one here, they are absolutely red hot. So when you soak the plant, you want to make sure really that you get a little bit of moisture coming through the bottom of the pot there to show that the plant is fully watered on there. But you obviously want it damp in the top, but you don't want it flooded. You also have to make sure that drainage holes are free at the bottom. If you suspect with a plastic pot like this one that although this has got huge drainage holes under there, if you suspect that they are becoming blocked with roots and things like that, you could theoretically drill holes in the side or the bottom of the pot to allow more water to come out there. So there is other options other than pots. There's things like troughs, which we've got over here, and yeah, so those, the more soil it holds, the better really, because the less frequently you're going to need to water them. But you do have to bear in mind that these types of pots, the bigger they are, the heavier they're going to be to move as well. Another advantage of pots really is that you can move them into garages and greenhouses and things like that over winter. So if you've got a plant that needs protection, then it is handy in that way as well. Now, plants in the ground, again, it depends on what type of plant it is. I'm on quite free draining soil here, so basically it's almost impossible to overwater because it will drain away through the chalk really easily. So watering in the ground isn't a problem for me, but if I was on clay, obviously that's more tricky because you don't want to let the clay completely dry out because it will turn like concrete. So that's that really. So obviously plants like Gunnera, which we have here, require a really moist soil to thrive in. They're generally found near ponds. So I have a pond that I've put in underneath really just to provide moisture for this particular type of plant. Now things like these Tetrapanax, this is underneath a conifer and a sycamore tree, so the soil is generally quite dry, and the leaves, when they're really hot, are slightly wilting here, but not too bad actually. You can dig in things like there is some water retaining granules that you can throw into the soil and they swell up. So I think it's called swell gel. It swells up like a jelly and then basically provides extra moisture for it. So if you're on a free draining soil, it's a good idea to actually use that product because it will help establish the young plants. And even though the gel swells up, it doesn't, then it can get moisture from it. It doesn't mean that the water is sort of sat around the roots the whole time, so the plant can absorb it as it needs it. So hopefully you guys have found this particular video useful. So general rule of thumb, if the plant is in a pot, it's going to need watering more frequently than if it was in the ground. It's a good idea to try and get as many plants into the ground as you possibly can, because that will really save you in the summer having to water too many pots. So it's much more time saving. So I also, as you can see, I use quite a few different types of fertilizers, but they all have their particular usage, and I don't use them kind of all the time. It's just if and when they do need them. So especially if you're establishing new plants, it's a good idea to essentially boost them as much as possible in their early days. I don't bother feeding throughout the winter months because generally you don't want that weak growth during that period of time, which is likely to either snap off with the wind or get frosted off by the frost. So yeah, in a nutshell, it's worth using these particular types of fertilizers for certain situations, and keep your plants watered in really hot temperatures. And if you're going to be away on like holiday for a long period of time, obviously try and get somebody to water your plants, or try and automate things as much as possible, like having irrigation in the ground. You can, believe it or not, run that off of a tap. There is enough pressure generally to have a few pop-ups on that, and by using a water timer you can split the pressure so that you can have different areas of the garden watering at different times. So that saves putting a water tank in the garden or in the ground. So hopefully you found this video really useful. Potentially it's going to be quite a long hot summer judging by the weather so far. So hopefully all of this will help come together and help you produce a better garden. So hope you've enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe as always, and I'll see you guys on the next video.